scrap of paper.
Bill, and here on Capitol Hill.
Do you remember that cute little cartoon Bill sitting on Capitol Hill, making it sound so simple? Yeah, well, those days are gone. It's definitely not cute anymore, and things are definitely not simple. In this clip from episode 7, John breaks down the big, beautiful bill, grown folk style. Sit back, enjoy, and as always, join the conversation.
Yeah, Katie. A couple things caught my attention this week, and we'll get into a couple of issues that you ran into, which you always seem to run into. I don't know why it is that you seem to have problems with members of the audience, but we'll get to that in a bit. I wanted to start with the passage of the big, beautiful bill, as it was called, with this administration. And it was signed on July 4th. I don't know if that was fitting or whether or not that was something that we will come to regret. I think a huge portion of the population may come to regret it. But looking at the bill and looking at the smiling faces that were captured while the shit show was signing the bill, the thing that struck me as odd was if you look at the majority of the faces that are surrounding him, it's white men who are of a certain age, and there were probably 20 people captured in the photo that I looked at. 18 of them were white men who I would say were 50 plus, and 2 Caucasian females. And I was looking at the smiling of the faces of the individuals as they were signing or watching this bill being signed by the shit show. And it dawned on me that this is a representation of who this party, the Republican Party, is and who it is that they stand for. Unfortunately, the individuals who are going to be primarily harmed by what's in this bill, and I don't think a lot of people understand what's in this bill, going to be individuals who are primarily Caucasian and primarily individuals who are relying on Medicaid to help them make ends meet. And then you juxtapose that with these smiling individuals who are able to carve out a lot of different perks for themselves, and the people who are going to be at the tail end of receiving some of these benefits, or some of these cuts, I should say. What were some of the thoughts that you had in terms of thinking about what we saw transpire this week with the big, beautiful bill passage and the signing?
So thanks for bringing that up. There was a lot in there. And so there are a couple of things that were important to me. Those would impact my children. So, everything revolves around them or me. And I'm really concerned about the services that would impact, like the Social Security services, the disability services, taking things away from that. One of the things that's happening here in Texas that's directly impacting us is that the state has moved funds away from the adults with disabilities, so they're unable to do their typical summer program. And so I'm really concerned about that. And some of the other things I'm sure that I probably should be concerned, but that's front of mind for me is how is that going to impact my son and his journey.
I think when you look at the bill and you look at the components that they will tow, and to be fair, there are some components of this bill that do make sense. If you look at the no tax on tips with respect to the individuals who are servers or work in the restaurant industry, I think that's a good thing, because having workers that are paying tips and that tip serve as their primary source of income, I don't have a problem with not taxing that to a certain degree. This is how I would look at it. So the first $25,000 of tips will be tax deductible. The interesting thing is they're sunsetting a lot of this stuff to end in 2028. And the key with 2028 is because that is the election year. So all of this stuff will take place within that 4-year window between 2025 and 2028. So theoretically, they have positioned themselves to say, we are extending these cuts to you. They will benefit you for this period of time. If you don't vote for us, Democrats are going to roll back these benefits. And so they're going to raise your taxes. From that standpoint, they've done something strategically that makes sense. I think the first 25,000 for tips are going to be exempt from being taxed. Now, the interesting thing will be individuals who don't make tips, but make bonuses with respect to corporate America. So you have these C-suite individuals who may get an annual bonus as opposed to a tip. Now, do the bonuses then fall into play? And they said, okay, well, if we're exempting these individuals from being taxed on tips, why can't I be exempt from paying taxes on a bonus that I'm receiving with respect to my salaried position. I think that's where we're trending with respect to this. So it'd be very interesting to see how this plays out in a couple of years. The other thing that I think was of value in this bill was starting this year up to $25 or $12,500 in extra overtime pay will be tax deductible. So for those individuals who are working an hourly job and working again extra overtime, they can get some tax benefits there. Those two things are good things, and those are things that I think both Democrats and Republicans and independents would agree on. I think the problem is that when you juxtapose that to some of the atrocities that are happening in this bill, they have a carve out in terms of what we call the SALT deduction, which is state and local income taxes primarily geared toward states like New York, California, New Jersey, where there's high state taxes. Those individuals who live in those states can get additional deductions. The other thing that caught my attention was the car loan interest, deducting car loan interest for buyers up to $10,000 in car loan. And so that deduction, I think, could be a benefit to, again, the average American who is going out and buying a car. And so he or she will be able to deduct some of that. Also, like the senior tax deduction, where seniors are able to, again, deduct up to $6,000 in of additional revenue that they're getting after the age of 65. So those are some key things that I think are very, very good with this bill. Then you think about the other components of that. So if you are a millionaire and you have an estate that's over $15 million, you can then transfer ownership of that estate without paying the estate tax. It was originally $7 million, and that was going to be sunset at the end of 2025. These guys were able to raise it to $15 million beginning in 2025. From their standpoint, most of them probably fall into the category where they are having estates that are $15 million and greater. And so they're going to benefit from that. So that pass through in terms of the tax exemption is something that they will benefit from. The other thing that I again think that will hurt education is the voucher system. I've spent the majority of my career in terms of education. Vouchers originally were designed to help low-income students who were in schools that were low performing be able to go to schools that had better resources, that had better teacher capacity, that would allow them to matriculate through K-12. What we've seen happen is we've seen a lot of suburban folks start using vouchers as a way to help fund their private school educations. And so we've seen a huge movement with respect to that, especially in a state like Texas, where you have the voucher program that's a huge part of the education system there. And so I'm going to be interested to see how it is that you take the good parts of this bill with the terrible parts of the bill, like we talked about the inheritance of the state tax. We also talk about other things that are happening with respect to border security and the increase of ICE agents with respect to border security, or the increase of the funding for that wall that he has been trying to build for the last decade or so. I look at this bill as his attempt to essentially roll back a lot of what it is that President Obama was able to pass. President Biden was able to pass with his legislation. And so a lot of this, in some ways, is rolling back some of the key provisions of the bills that they passed, and is a huge giveaway and redistribution of wealth from the lower income to those individuals who really did not need assistance. What say you, Matt?
Well, I say first off, for the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Jeff Bezos, good vote. You did well. Second, you were asking how they're going to juxtapose these two things. I'm thinking we need another season of Olivia Pope in real life. They're going to need to really market this. They're going to need to change the narrative, and I think they do a good job of it. We talked about how they're very effective using the media to deflect, to cause chaos, to have people looking at things that are not important. I think that'll continue, and it'll be fine.
Some parts of it, again, I like. I'd be lying to say if I did not like. I do like some parts of it, but I think the parts that bother me are the parts that you're taking away from those who can at least afford things being taken away from them, transferring it to individuals who currently aren't paying their fair share of taxes. And so I don't have a problem with, again, the savings accounts aspects that are part of this, and the cuts with respect to some of the things that we need to take a look at. What I do have a problem with is we're doing that and we're adding $25 billion to defense spending, or we're adding additional money to things in terms of taking away Medicaid as individuals who are least stable in terms of economically in our society. The irony is that a lot of this is being done in the states that overwhelmingly voted for this administration. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how those individuals respond.
Thank you for sharing that because you, as a capitalist, I'm always concerned about why you agree with anything. And so I was like, let me go ahead and do some additional research because I definitely will not be blindly agreeing with whatever you have to say. So thank you for sharing.
You know what? I am a capitalist, and there's a part of this that I'm like, okay, I'm looking at, say, there's a provision in here that's taxing the endowments of large colleges and universities. So, like, you have a university like Harvard or Yale that have billions in terms of endowments. One of the things that they're doing is they're adding like a 1% or 4% tax on some endowments. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with them paying a portion of that to help fund some of what it is that we're doing. As always, guys, thank you for spending time with us. We know that you have a lot that you could be doing, a lot of things that you could be focused on, and a lot of things that you could be spending your time on. You don't have to listen, but we're glad you did. And as always, take some time today to do something nice for yourself. And while you're at it, do something nice for someone else. Until next time, we'll talk.
Well, thanks for joining us for another lively discussion. This podcast is a production of the SME Media Group, LLC. All rights are reserved. If you like this episode, click on the link in the right-hand corner and check out additional content. Also, be sure to subscribe to the I Take Your Point podcast to ensure you're getting all of your content. Until next time, take care and be well.